Good. Dr. George Gregory Hans Muller has a rather interesting YouTube channel. The name is Carefree Wanderer. The purpose is to sort of stand outside some of the sort of cathexis, the way in which we are all wound up so tightly. The sort of restoration of philosophy as some sort of liberative process. I think this idea of philosophy as liberator is rather a dangerous one. Not because people are risk too much on their path towards liberation. It's that this whole idea of philosophy as liberator makes it something ready at hand. But what's interesting is if you look at his YouTube channel, his videos are not created in a manner which is carefree at all. They are highly edited. The clips jump between one another. I suspect he has at least one or two, probably graduate students, helping him with the entire process. And he writes scripts very clearly. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in what sense is this carefree? So, what would we like to talk about? The process of liberation, whether we may become liberated ourselves, whether we are liberated ourselves, this, for me, is completely ancillary to the process of philosophy. Just because you do philosophy, just because you can have very good philosophy, does not mean that you are liberated. It stands completely outside. The goal of philosophy, the teleological purpose, is not to liberate oneself. What does this even mean, to liberate? To set free? To set free? Our language is very confusing in these ways, especially English. Yet the analytic philosopher very rarely brings these to a head. They place faith in the simplicity for a thing which cannot be made simple. And the irreducible bit is just ignored, is just repressed. But some fragment in our method of enframing, be it physics, be it the mode of political existence we see today, or have ever seen, some fragment always comes through. Now, for Zizek, the Slovenian philosopher, and Jacques Lacan, this is called some fragment of the real. What exactly do we mean by this? Why exactly must, there be some gravitas to things which are really there? In what sense? This is just a sort of adoption of some imago, of some Freudian, I am the father. Okay, good for them. What I mean by that, because that may put you off a sense, is that it subverts the thing. Again, it represses as much as it reveals. It treats it as some, grand, complex thesis that is always, sort of Hegelian, sort of schizophrenic outlook. Now, why for me is Hegel schizophrenic? Well, he's the final sort of attempt to hold on to yourself, even when the walls of reality are collapsing inside of it. You are faced with things to which clearly disturb the peace of the modern philosophical byproduct, of the modern philosophical product. And our way of dealing with that is what? It's to instill movement in a way utterly alien. It's a way to describe, it's a process of movement that, because of its movement, somehow constitutes a system. It's schizophrenic, or more broadly psychotic, in the attempt that it makes to hold on to some fragment of a thing, that being a system on which the modern philosophical process is based, similar to science at the time, similar to science now, the lie that science tells itself, that it adheres to some method, which gives it some ground to stand on. On what grounds do you stand? On what grounds? On grounds assigned to you by the universe? Really? Okay. Now, grounds assigned to you by the universe, I think this is a very plausible thing. But why should the universe be altogether objective? Why should the universe be altogether what? Why do they start from this point? There's a rather interesting start. The Cartesian meditations. I don't exactly recall the words. I'm not a memorizer. But I am mesmerizable. No, but I mean, like, there's just like this, like, such a like tightness to like all of the like modern philosophy. I mean, it's in there, every single one of them. Locke, Berkeley, Hobbes, Hume, Kant, Spinoza, Leibniz. But also, too, like, what's so hilarious is that each one of them, they say, I adhere to this method. No, it's not. There's nothing from me in here. And then they all have some, like, random axiom that just is there, from which everything else is built, and from which circles to the ultimate conclusion of, it's completely circular. Now, why is this so seldom talked about? How dare I? Oh, you really think you understand a thing differently? Well, no, not exactly. The problem is, or not the problem, the reality is that such things cannot be said in the discipline. It is not accepted as valid philosophical work, as valid at all. It is considered indistinguishable from schizophrenia. It is considered indistinguishable from personal avarice, from strange out there. But so be it. I can still enjoy myself and have a good time here. And where is this good time in philosophy? Even someone like Nietzsche, who says, "Oh, you must be happy and frolic in the flowers." He's so serious. There's such weight to his sort of lines, and it's altogether not right. Now, I read some of Zhuangzi, or whatever it is. Just like the thing with the butterfly line. But I didn't read it from there. I read it from the start down. So, pretty interesting, and that it sort of brings us to some rather Heideggerian standpoints on correct interpretation. But I came into it again from what I recall from a George Hans Muller YouTube video, with this expectation of Taoism being somehow critical of Confucianism, but I noticed that in the work, Confucian was a character, and he was saying a lot of stuff, and then I couldn't follow all the characters. Why would you follow all the characters? That's not the point. You think that's the point? You think the point of what that work was is to write down the names? And yeah? Okay. Confucian, is he to be taken seriously? Or him and whatever the people who are like besting him, alternative. Well, isn't it? Confucian does not really believe what he says. He's a little bit silly. But what I do find still a little bit alienating. I hate that word, alienating. Oh, alienating. Marx is a joke. Seriously, Marx is a joke. And it's so funny how you see people in oppressed groups think that the path towards liberation is something out of the modern philosophical project, which was the basis, philosophically, for all of colonial oppression. And out of that spins what? Something that stands outside of it? No. It exists simply as bad philosophy. In the sense that it's just stupid. It's just stupid. If you read this, it doesn't make sense why he wants to sort of return to some sort of original relation. When it's well, no, there's a teleological struggle towards progress, Mr. Marx. Or as Cornell would say, Brother Marx. Really? These guys are your brother? These guys are your friend? A lot of philosophers sort of have this who are you? Who are you to sort of... What do you mean? There is no you. I'm not talking for me. I'm talking from what is there. From what I am trying to grasp without squishing. What is there in you? Nothing. The philosopher today is a dead man. He has no spirit. He has no ability to speak freely not because of something imposed on him, but because of the philosopher today himself. Garbage. The Americans as much as the Europeans. In China, it is interesting. The fact that they have philosophy PhD programs, and they're taught in English, German, and French. This is rather interesting. But still, China is not some way that is completely different. The whole sort of communist Chinese thing is false pretense. Oh yes, they are completely opposed to us while doing the same exact thing? I mean, what? My real disappointment was going on I asked the AI, the large language model, DeepSeek, for a way to speak with Chinese students. I was curious if they're any different from the ones we have here. If they are somehow more willing to engage with things. Because I am met with generally a lack of engagement from my peers, from my professors, from the world at large. And this may be a nice thing. But it is not only the fact that I am poorly tolerated, it is that I am only let in the space to be beaten, which is rather strange. But no, beaten. That's too extreme. That's too far. Instead of philosophy as liberative, we should think of philosophy as therapeutic. We should return the therapeutic value back to philosophy. Philosophy is not about some display of greatness on the part of the philosopher. Philosophy is about the emptying approach towards something. Towards what? We know not what. We know what. It's very close to us. Oh, this thing trying to burst forth. And in daring to push that forward, something appears. Something comes forth. It's not the real. It's that the fact that on one level, this sort of endeavor is silly. Is easy to say, oh, how dare he? Oh, what an idiot. Oh, how strange. But on another level, it takes us the purpose of philosophy is to keep the daemon in man free. That was said by Marcus Aurelius. No, it wasn't. That was an attempt by me to just give a false quote instead of just saying here's basically what he said. But this was the basic sort of thing of philosophy, man, daemon, free. Demon. Meant spirit. Something closer to spirit. The idea in Christianity of demons is it's very strange in Christianity, or Christian dogma rather, this fear, ooh, demons, ooh, the devil. I would credit, or I wouldn't adhere to Hannah Arendt here. That evil is not something that happens when we go too far, too extreme, too out there. No, if we go too out there, we are setting the boundaries in which we may exist. The evil is banal. It's boring. It is But it is the sort of imitating of the thing without its actually being there. Yes, that's real evil. Yes, these are the real demons. But what does it mean that there are demons inside of us, inside of some of us? And they're set free how? And why would they be put there in the first place by God? Are we not thinking of things in an altogether narrow way? Are we not placing limits on ourselves before we see if they are really there? It is interesting today, the stance most hold towards negative liberty. The stance, certainly, the administrative states hold towards negative liberty. At my college campus, for example, you cannot go onto roofs. You cannot open windows all the way. In my house, I can open my windows. Sometimes bugs get in. But me, as a 22-year-old, I don't have many places to go when I'm at my house. For I do not have the means. Not the means of. I don't have the means. So like, we like think that we want things ready at hand. Oh, I want it all there so when I need it. This is really what most of us should become right now. If you sort of read Heidegger, engage in hermeneutics, and say, well, okay, I don't really have like this call that they speak of. Oh, take the call. Well, I don't really have one. Well, it's like, okay, we'll just stand in reserve until it comes. What does it mean to make oneself stand in reserve? It is to bring oneself towards the clearing so that something may come. What? We know not. What? How? Well, wow. It's interesting how bound up people are today. Autism is a fascinating disorder. No, it did not exist in the way it does now in the early 20th century. It's a product of at least mid 20th century thinking. Like, look, and I'm not trying to be imprecise here, and I'm not afraid of but look, if autism like existed as a sort of in the way in which mental disorders exist ontologically and the time in which they are observed, in the sense that okay, maybe they were there in like one or two people, if it sort of like is like a spreading thing, we know not how they originate. Certainly one must agree that they shift with time, or unless we're moving closer towards the true ontology of mental illness. Yeah, no, it's that they shift. They're contingent towards the period in which you are in. Obviously, look at the functioning of look at how multiple personality disorder works, or BPD, or sorry, not BPD, dissociative identity disorder. It's called now. These labels shift because these labels aren't some sort of ontological entity. They don't fundamentally like pinpoint anything. It's just sort of like what is deemed more useful for the time is what it is in the best case. Yes, I agree. Yes. Today, certain labels are needed. Certain things shift. But the illness itself shifts as well. In the way in which it is culturally expressible and culturally created. And societally created. Mental illness is largely caused by deformities in the social. Not in the way that the one suffering from it socializes, but in the world. When I was when I spent some time in psychiatric hospital last August for 2 weeks, I spoke to many patients, and I sort of wanted to figure out are these people just out there? Is there anything in them that I could reach at hand? Certainly the doctors had no interest. Certainly not. The doctors observed. They would go on rotation and speak to patients for approximately 4 minutes. And what would they do? Well, they would ask them a series of questions and then wait for a thing to come to them and say, okay, here's what it is. Goodbye. And give them medication for which they had no say, for which they were given largely because they were deemed dangerous to themselves and dangerous to others. I question this danger to others. I question this danger to themselves. I question why it is not permissible to be a danger to oneself. I question why it is such a taboo thing to be a danger to others. What exactly does this mean? Oh, if I am doing philosophy, I must not give another a dangerous idea. What? This thing is what produces the danger itself, the inability to express, the inability to create boundaries, to push boundaries. Not in sort of the extremes, in sort of we establish a center through moving in different directions, through doing different things, through having at least the ability to do, the ability to exist in different ways. Yes, we could say as different persons, but this idea of person is so arbitrary. This is the fundamental problem with personal identity. It's a really stupid subdiscipline of philosophy today. I mean, oh my god, the way that analytic philosophers present philosophy as categories. Oh, metaphysics, epistemology. Oh, metaethics. What? Okay, yeah, so I can stand with my little expert hat. I'm the bioethicist. Here's what bioethics says. Well, actually, in bioethics... Okay. There's also, too, this sort of notion I've seen. Certain philosophy-adjacent people that, the academia is the place for the loonies, It's it's the place where, you're actually able to, be out there. No, it's not. The academic structure of today exists to kill that. To turn you into a mannequin. At least this process of mannequinization is what I see in many of the faculty. They often walk away from students talking to them after class. Think about that. They act as some sort of authority? Why? Is this what Socrates did? Even the most radical of hermeneuticians today says, Andre, well, what do you want? What is your problem with academic philosophy? What exactly do you think you know that can't be put into a paper? That can't be reduced down into an editable form. Well, no. What is this editable form? That's not even... this isn't even the line of which I attack. The things I attack are... I could come from any side of it. It's not... It's like 15 lines and they're all winning. If you know chess, you understand what that means. Anyways, the most radical of hermeneuticians says, well, what is your problem? What? Oh. Look at how radical the postmodernists were. Look at how outside the system they were. Look at the way in which they wrote. It's completely still within literary Western hegemony. What do I mean by hegemony? I mean hegemony. What? I need to define all my terms? Are we going to get anywhere today? And what does this mean to define a term? Oh, I define it, therefore I capture it? Terms cannot be defined. Terms are interpreted. We do not think of, when we speak and we decide a word and we think about it, we aren't thinking, like this word, here's a definition. This word, here's a definition. This word, here's a definition. The sort of like interpretive swell of emotive connotations that they produce in us. So yes, even the most radical hermeneutician of today says, well, surely you agree that a philosophy paper must at the least have an argument. Really? Is this what Socrates did? In what sense has this become philosophy? In what sense is this philosophy? Philosophy is not defined by this. Necessarily. And it's not defined by this openly. There is no standard of philosophy written. There is a written as word. There's no philosophy Bible. It's decided upon. And it's decided upon for reasons today, which trace back to these European colonial powers for which we so are willing to critique, yes? Yet, even the mode of expressing outside of it is not accepted into philosophy at all. Yes, there are black philosophers. But where is the black voice? I'll leave you with that one for today. Take care.